I studied value for basically 1 month and okay, got the Mr. Beast intro. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's me once again, and I hope you guys are doing well. So yeah, I actually did what the title said. For the month of April, I spent a lot of my drawing time studying values. It was fun and quite the enjoyable experience. And yeah, this video is coming out over a month late, but hey, better late than never, right? So in today's video, I'm going to talk about what I learned, what I struggled with, and I want to show you the good, the okay, and the ugly art that I made during this time. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory before we get right into this though. So this idea of studying values was brought up to me by this wonderful person by the name of Yuushin. The issues with my execution and understanding of values were brought to my attention by them initially, and from there they taught me a whole lot about value and other art related things. And they're just an awesome person, so shout out to them. Go follow them, please. They're awesome. So at first, I was introduced to the concepts of local and shadow value. I kinda knew a little bit about this, like I remember the terms, but I didn't really know what they meant. The idea of limiting my values to black, 50% gray, and white was also introduced to me, and changing my approach to using values like this upgraded my studies immediately. And I also learned that most images are made up of local and shadow values. Didn't know that. So that stuff happened in late March, and this was when my journey began. For my first quick batch, I did 3 sessions of studying value through Pinterest photos and some artworks. And this first batch was okay. This second batch was not that good. I remember when I was doing this, I was very focused on time and I was kind of rushing these ones. So I should have been smarter and taken a break, but I didn't. This final batch though was much better. I do like this one. After those sessions, I decided to finally execute an idea I've had in my brain for years at this point. This Eustace drawing, which I've talked about more at length in this video, so if you want to hear more about that, go ahead and check that out. But this is an idea that I've wanted to do for so long, but I just never did. Plus I had that, oh, I'll do it when I'm good mentality. Like, what was I talking about? So that barred me from going through with this for so long. But with my newer outlook of just draw it, make mistakes, learn from them, I finally ended up drawing this, and it was a really fun time. As this was my first time applying value to my own artwork since getting this new information and perspective on it, I didn't really know what to do here. I had a faint idea in my mind of what I wanted to go for with the lighting, but I wasn't sure, so I returned to my mentor to ask for advice. I asked how I could improve the general lighting in this painting to give it more of a dramatic feel, and also how to give him more attention to his face, which I did kind of do in the end. I was told that this was a great opportunity for me to mix both local and shadow values to create this work. And I was also guided on where I should place my darkest values because I didn't really know how these worked. And finally, she provided me with her own rendition of the lighting I was kind of envisioning, and I gotta say, my jaw dropped, and I audibly shouted, "Holy crap," when I saw this. With this reference in mind now, I returned to the piece and completed it. I will say, for this Eustace piece, it's obviously not the greatest thing ever, and that's okay. I was honestly pretty proud with how it ended up, even if it wasn't magnificent. But being able to acknowledge that feeling that I made something that I kinda liked made me happy. This is 100% an artwork that I want to revisit in like a year or so to really see how much better I can improve on this concept, and I am so hyped for when that time comes. Moving on though, after that I returned to studying, though I wanted to test myself again, so I drew Callan from Code Geass, my favorite anime. I drew her in color initially, and then the next day I tried to do it in grayscale, following this reference's lighting. Didn't turn out terrible, I kind of like it, but don't ask me about that background, I didn't know what I was doing. After this, I conjured up a couple more paintings, which were pretty okay, but this one, this study is unfinished, and I gotta blame myself for this one. You wanna know how much time I gave myself to do this one? 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes. And needless to say, I rage quitted. Yeah, I was like, screw this, should I even be doing timed value studies if it stresses me out like this? I was spiraling for sure when I was doing this. And it led me to return right back to Yuushin. Once again, I returned for advice and critique, and this was the day my values were going to take a turn for the better. I was curious about improving my process because at this time I was using the multiply layer as my shadow value layer, and a lighten layer if the reference was more light dominated, which I really had no reason for using this. I kind of just used it. I also ranted a bit about my experience with that study, but yeah. So with this, I learned that I should take more time to choose my references because you can't just choose whatever reference you come across, unfortunately. I went a little too hard for this one for the lack of experience I had, but honestly, I feel like if I give myself way more time, I could do this one so much better now. She ended up doing her own study of this reference and even told me that it wasn't the most simple reference, especially for a beginner. And did I mention that she didn't try to do this in 15 minutes? So yeah, lesson learned for sure. Lesson learned for sure. So a note for the future is to give myself more time. A good time frame of about 15 to 30 minutes for a study. Usually spend about 15 on more simpler pinups and more time on more complicated studies because limitations are good. You know, it could be 30 minutes, could be 40, as long as I'm giving myself adequate time for the studies, but not all the time in the world that I get lost in the details of a reference. Another thing I was told was to stick to 1 to 2 layers, mainly one for the background and one for the subject, and not to use layer opacity or blending modes. These will definitely be useful in the future, but not for these simple value studies, because using these would unintentionally discourage me from analyzing the values properly, so it was a good idea to cut these out of my studies. I also asked if it was okay for me to turn the reference black and white because before this point, I was looking at my reference in black and white from the beginning to the end. But now I was advised to use grayscale more as a troubleshooter when I'm having issues / to compare the final values at the end of the study. Another thing I was told was to use a lasso tool, which I did not understand how to use effectively for a bit, and I also learned how to extend my canvas. Yes, I didn't know how to do this, but hey, now you can look at these fancy time lapses, so enjoy. It was crazy how much I learned from this chat, but I was very happy to be failing early and learning from all these mistakes because I want to improve. I kind of hate being bad, but learning while being a little stressful is really fun. And by the end of this chat, I was gifted with a magical weapon. A brush by the name of Minnesota! Yeah, thank you, Joe? Yes, Minnesota. This brush elevated my future studies like crazy. I was given it because it was recommended that I try to use a brush with some more texture, plus pressure opacity to give my drawing some more life. And wow, this brush changed me. I was so motivated to use this brush that the very next day I returned with 7 studies completed. Yeah, I was kind of high on motivation. So you can tell that these are really rough. I obviously was very new to the brush, but I was happy to have something new to use, especially with this beautiful, beautiful texture. I kept these all to a short 15 to 25 minutes for this batch, and I came in with some questions about using the lasso tool, having cleaner sketches, and how to deal with soft light. So to start with the lasso tool, the thing I took away from this was to use the lasso tool to select parts which you want to shade lighter, and to just use it to shade without accidentally spilling over to the other parts of the drawing. Which, very simple explanation. It was very easy to understand in words, but it took me a good amount of studies to really get a feel for how I should use this. In addition to that, I was also given another little fun gift, a lasso fill tool, which really helped me a ton with these studies. For soft light, I was told not to worry too much about it because if I can work something out with solid shapes, softening them up is honestly quite easy. Especially with the use of the lasso tool, which this advice really rung true when I got to my final big artwork. But an observation that was also pointed out to me was the issue of over-rendering. It really shows in this study. I used a lot of extra values in places where they really didn't need to be. A quick comparison between the two of our studies shows that, yeah, I may have overdone it a little bit. But with this, I learned a very important acronym, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't be stupid. Okay, sorry. I had to do that. So this is when my strategy changed and I started to trace over the subjects in my references to make my job easier. Yes, tracing is just another tool, guys. Don't forget that, but obviously we know not to claim traced artwork of others as our own. Yeah. But as these studies were focused on value, tracing made my time easier and my studies way more proportionally accurate, which was a big help. So with all this new knowledge, I went back and did a couple more studies. This one was alright. I love how I did this one. This one, I should have switched the skin and the shirt's values. This fourth one isn't so bad. It's pretty nice. And this final one, woof. I was not liking this one at all. Very mushy, very yucky. And these shapes were just not it. I was definitely spiraling a little bit when I was drawing this one. I could have just restarted, but I decided to try to make something out of it. But I kind of just made something out of shit. Turned out pretty bad, but that's alright. We aren't always going to have perfect studies. Just gotta keep it simple next time. When I finished those up, I came back to this maki drawing I was cooking up and made it into this awesome piece. This was really fun to work on, and I actually used myself as reference here. I had the idea right in my mind from the beginning, so this is an easier one to work on. I wanted her to be cutting through something, debated on if I wanted it to be more fleshy / bloody, but instead I landed on the idea of her just cutting through something random because I was happy with how my shapes were turning out. Although I envisioned the concept pretty well, the lighting on this one was actually kind of tricky because I haven't really done anything like this before. I decided to keep things very hard-edged with the shapes to give it more of a manga-esque feel. And I was actually going to use a 4th shade for the skin, but I chose not to because I felt like it was going to overcomplicate things. So in terms of lighting, I definitely could have had way more light cover things like the face or the arms, and even on the blade here I wanted some of whatever she was cutting through on her blade, but I didn't really know how to illustrate that because I didn't understand the lighting. Should I have made it darker? Should I have made it white? I did not know, but I just kept it dark. One of the biggest takeaways from this is that I do not know how to shade forms. They are very tricky to do. They are super tricky to do. But all in all, it turned out pretty well, and I think it's actually really cool. After I completed this artwork, I returned once again. I honestly thought I was having a bad streak of studies because these were just boring or bad to me. And that's probably because I had a smaller size of studies and I went for more safer references. So we didn't have too much to say about the study specifically, but when it came to my maki art, there was something that was pointed out to me that was sort of a recurring issue in my art. The 4:3 ratio. Yep, the way I composed my more dynamic art was actually kind of poor in terms of the ratio. Like the Yuushin drawing was actually way more square before this, and this Callan art was, well, it had that squarish look as well. This was something I was very happy that was pointed out to me early because who knows how long I would have kept doing this. But I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I still kind of do it. I don't know, composition is hard, okay? It's hard. After I was told about this though, scrolling through Twitter made me go, oh my god. So many things were just super vertical or horizontal, and wow, it was very eye-opening. I thought it was awesome. After this, I challenged myself to do one last value artwork with no help. And this is when I was given some parting advice about my major pitfalls and some solutions to those problems. Again, I'm glad that these were pointed out to me so I could catch myself if I started getting tripped up on anything. So these common pitfalls were that I struggled to decide which value to assign to brighter colors. I'm often mixing up the value of the skin versus white clothes and lighter hair, so a suggestion to counter that is to turn the reference grayscale and see which one is brighter. If the values are close, then some light shading could help separate them. Another pitfall being the placement of soft versus sharp transitions. This one was a doozy for me for sure, and I obviously still struggle with it, which is why I need to study forms. But as a rule of thumb, rounder and flatter surfaces can have softer transitions. Or if the curve is very subtle, you can just make it one flat value. Boxier and high contrast places can have sharper edges, and this is when you want to utilize the lasso tool. It's better to start off sharp and simple, as you can easily soften up with the blur tool or a soft brush later. And finally, to be mindful of using black in shading. In low contrast, mid-value dominated images, it's much better to use it as an accent in places where the sun doesn't shine. With all that noted down though, I set off to do my last couple studies and one final artwork for the road. So I started with these four. This first one's alright. I messed up some things like not having some softer edges, and I also didn't really draw the bottle correctly. The second one's nice, but I didn't really like how I shaded the stomach here, and that hair is disgusting. Could have been better, for sure. This third one is definitely my least favorite because this is just super messy and the values were just not valuing. This shirt is just really ugly too, oh my gosh. And this last one I actually used a lasso tool and it came out much better, so I actually like this one a little bit. In the next session I did two studies. This one is 100% my favorite because damn, I cooked. Like the shading, oh my goodness, it's amazing. But the second one was bad because my process was really bad. I didn't place all my values before getting into the finer details, which was very silly of me, so I left this one unfinished. Disappointing, but after this, I chose to work on my final big value piece, and who did I decide to draw? Maki, once again. Yeah, once again. I told you guys you're going to see her a lot. What did I say? My original plan was actually to draw Kai from Guilty Gear, but I literally had no idea how I wanted to draw him. So I said, screw it, let's just comfort pick. This artwork turned out good by mistake, I swear, because I don't know what I did here. I did this in 3 sessions, which was nice. During the first and second sessions though, I wanted to jump off a bridge. I was hating how things were turning out with this sketch and the shading, and I just wanted to give up and start working on this video. So I ended up lying in my bed and I just was ranting to myself. But after that break, I got up and continued working on it some more, and man, it actually started to turn out pretty good. This pose I got from the Pose Archives is really cool, and I love their stuff. They have many good references, and I was really inspired by this piece by Regenerator Rex. This is really cool. I love this art, and go follow them, please. I gotta give so much credit to the lasso tool in this one because it did so much work for me. These smooth transitions, the subtle lighting on the clothes and the arms, oh my goodness. Thank you, lasso tool, and thank you, airbrush tool, and thank you, blur tool, and thank you. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think one of the more challenging things for me was deciding on an expression. I was messing with it a ton at first, but I landed on this one. It's not bad, it's not awful. If I can quickly talk about some things that I don't like though, it's the lighting on the hands. Like, this could have been better. The shirt is kind of a mystery in terms of how I wanted to use the shadows, and I'm kind of iffy on the head. I felt like I could have made it more anime-like, but I don't know. But yeah, that's how that turned out. I posted it on Twitter and it actually did pretty well, so that's a cool bonus. To cap off the study period, I did these last 4 studies, which turned out alright. This first one took me way longer than I needed to, but it was the first one of the day, so it makes sense. I didn't blend the values very well though, so The second one isn't that bad, the face isn't the best, but the values were the focus. But the shadows are messy in this one too. This third one sucks. I was intrigued by the clothing that she had, but oh my god, this turned out to be way harder than I thought. And this final one is nice. I actually like this one quite a bit. It was a nice final study to end this period on. Alright, so here's the conclusion part of this video, and the most important part, so let's talk. So, did I become a pro at understanding and being able to construct beautiful artworks to the power of values? No, of course not. Learning art is a slow process, and I must say, I started getting a little tripped up with my focus here. I started to want to just study, and practice even more value studies, but I had to catch myself for a moment and be like, wait, hold up, remember, have fun, go do your fun drawings, go make your messy sketches. Please don't get tripped up in studying again. Because I kind of mentioned this in one of my other videos, but I've kind of fallen into that personal trap of being too study focused at times, which isn't a bad thing per se, especially if you do find a lot of joy in studying. But for me, when I get too into it, I start to burn myself out a little bit, which is why taking short breaks is very valuable. Even though this was a very fun time of improvement, it would be incredibly dishonest of me to say that I did not struggle regularly. Because I did. And mind you, it could range from, this is kind of difficult, to, oh my god, I hate this so much. Why am I even doing art in the first place? This is terrible. Yeah, you get it what I mean. Which is why taking breaks was really good for me. All in all, this was really fun. I gained so much more motivation to draw, and honestly some discipline too through these studies. You can really see how much I improved during this period too, which is awesome. I love it. But if I could mention something quickly, it's the importance of critique. I quite literally could not have improved as much as I did without the help and guidance I got, and I would have crashed into so many walls, and I probably would have been using the same flat round brush. So if you can get critique, go and get it. Seriously, go and get it. But before I go, let me run through some stuff that I still struggle with. I kind of struggle with everything, to be honest, but for actual specifics, a new issue that has come up with me is simplifying. It's actually really hard, and with these last couple studies, I was a little bit too focused on those slight shifts in values, plus trying to make a nice blend of soft and hard shadows, which was not good. I was basically getting caught up in the details, and that's why I need to be more aware of time studies. Because if the timer goes off and I feel like I could do a little bit more, I'll do a little bit more, but I need to remind myself to stop looking so closely at the reference and just see the bigger picture of what I'm trying to draw and keep it simple. Stupid. Shading faces was also a constant issue in the studies because I can't draw the face. I can't, and I really don't understand the planes of the face that well. Another thing is backgrounds, but like I didn't really expect to make good backgrounds. But a lot of this is just a matter of repetition, repetition, and even more repetition. It is the mother of skill after all. But something that happened during this period that I do want to avoid next time is not using my sketchbook. I unknowingly started to stop using it because I was so focused on my value studies that I forgot to use it. Using my sketchbook also ties into that fun drawing aspect, so I need to remember to use it next time because I also became really rusty when I stopped using it. But really fun experience. I want to do it again, but I also want to take my time. As I said, I got way too caught up in studying, so next time I want to lower how many studies I do in a day to be able to have more consistency, so that I don't burn myself out. So that'll be something that I remember for sure. But I think that's all I had to talk about. I do want to take more time to study form and do a lot of figure studies because I want to be able to draw my favorites. Anyways, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you later.